Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here for Juggernaut Training Systems, bringing you some more information about strength and conditioning considerations for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitors. So today we're going to be talking about what's really a philosophical question in regards to training for Jiu-Jitsu is how heavy do you need to lift for Jiu-Jitsu, or how strong is strong enough? And this goes to what's a really popular axiom in the jiu-jitsu community is that technique beats strength. And yeah, all things being equal, technique does beat strength. The person with better technique wins. But also, all things being equal, if two people have the same amount of technique, the stronger person will win. And so often with those type of statements of all things being equal, they're generally useless because there's almost never a situation where all things are equal, where you're going to have two athletes with relatively identical strength and technique and speed and endurance qualities and gamesmanship and psychology and everything that goes into it. So saying technique beats strength, like, okay, that's a fun thing to say, but if two people did have equal technique, you'd rather be the stronger one. So what this gets at more is understanding the different types of strength that go into being a successful jiu-jitsu competitor, how we can develop them, when we should develop them, how much attention they need in relation to the development of technique. So strength is the ability to produce maximal force, but it is only part of the way strength is expressed for jiu-jitsu. Yes, maximal strength plays a role, just how heavy of a weight you can lift. That's how we're going to generally measure maximal strength. But again, it is the ability to produce maximum force. Explosive strength, how quickly you can produce that force, is going to be significant. Isometric strength plays a huge role in jiu-jitsu, and that's not moving weights, but that's holding static positions. And then strength endurance is going to be critical as well, because you might have to hold those positions for a very long time, and as you go through a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20-minute match, depending on your belt level and what competition you're in, strength and endurance is going to play a bigger and bigger role. So all of those need to be present in a successful jiu-jitsu competitor. So for someone like myself, coming from a powerlifting background at a very high level, maximal strength was really the only part of that was significant. So while I had a huge reserve there, and that does influence the other categories the most, isometric strength is basically no part of powerlifting, and strength endurance is a very insignificant part as well. So while people would look at me and think like, oh, you're the strongest jiu-jitsu competitor in the narrow definition of can I produce the most force on a barbell, on a piece of metal with other pieces of metal attached to it? Yes, probably, but that does not necessarily mean that I have the greatest strength for jiu-jitsu because of those other strength qualities. And then some special strength ideas we'll get into a bit later. So the strongest jiu-jitsu competitors, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, just a kind of matter-of-fact way, are nowhere near the strength levels of their comparable level. So think if there was a belt system in powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, football, this stuff, are nowhere near the strength levels of comparable level powerlifters. So if there was a black belt in powerlifting, I would have had a black belt in powerlifting, and there's no jiu-jitsu black belts who are comparably lifting comparable weights to me. And if an NFL player is a black belt football player, there's no jiu-jitsu competitors that are lifting the same kind of weights that you see like a Myles Garrett or Tyron Smith lifting, nor would they be comparable in strength, maximal or explosive strength, as track and field athletes like sprinters and throwers, and probably not even comparable maximal strength levels as gymnasts. But if they got in a jiu-jitsu match with any of those people, they would kick their ass. And this is because the role that maximal strength plays and its importance in jiu-jitsu is probably not as significant as it is in those other sports, and the other types of strength, explosive strength, isometric strength, strength endurance, aren't necessarily present in those other sports that are really associated, with speed and power, but they are very important in Jiu-Jitsu. So the level of strength needed to excel in Jiu-Jitsu should be not necessarily the goal. This high level of strength should not necessarily be the goal of the training, but almost more a byproduct of the training. So you don't need to go on a powerlifting program to be a better Jiu-Jitsu competitor. That would not be a judicious use of your energy and a smart, efficient way to train, because you don't need to have good powerlifting numbers, good elite powerlifting strength levels to be a great Jiu-Jitsu competitor. Because that maximal strength training comes with high neurological fatigue, with a lot of joint stress, it's not going to be worth it to train that way when you're already getting a lot of neurological fatigue and joint stress from your regular jiu-jitsu training. So you're just chasing, in doing that and trying to develop the best powerlifting numbers, you're just chasing sort of a ancillary, at best tangential goal to your what's going to make you the most successful jiu-jitsu competitor, because you can get strong enough for jiu-jitsu with a lot more submaximal training in the weight room, but doing that with great intent. So always moving the bar as forcefully, as explosively as possible, paired with other explosive work like sprints, jumps, medicine ball throws, with isometric training and with some higher rep training, which will give you the benefits of strength endurance, as well as supporting hypertrophy, and should have some benefits to joint health as well. So all of that kind of goes to the idea of constructing an effective training program. So the other important part of this to understand, because maximal strength is not the be-all end-all for a jiu-jitsu competitor. If it was, we could just go to powerlifting world championships and pick out the champions there and put them on the mat, and they would be successful right away. And that's because technique in any sport, but specifically in this context, technique of these jiu-jitsu movements is what allows you to effectively and efficiently express the strength that you do have, and gets into the concept of special strength, or strength that is very specific to sporting movements. And I'm right now 290 pounds. I can't at the moment, but have squatted over 900 pounds, deadlifted over 800, benched in the mid 500s. No jiu-jitsu competitor is matching those type of numbers, and even pretty high strength endurance numbers like 500 for 22 squat, 600 for 21 in the deadlift. But I've rolled with black belts, people like Otavio Sousa, Felipe de la Monica, and I roll with them, and these are guys who weigh 170, 180 pounds, but my God, do they feel strong. They feel, to me, stronger than I am, and so much of this is because their technique allows them to so well express and focus their strength through great frames and great positions, but also because they've done so many of these sporting movements, hundreds of, or thousands, tens of thousands of times. So while there's no way, to really measure that strength in a traditional sense with like a barbell exercise, if you did have, force plates or different, more exotic kind of tools to measure how hard they're turning their hip with this certain grip and everything, you would see this great expression of force in these very specific movements. So training submaximally is going to get you strong enough, but not take away too much of your energy, so that you can use it developing this special strength through practicing your sport. And there are ways to overload some of those sport movements, like there's some things that you could do wearing a weighted vest, or even just something as simple as training with partners who are heavier than you are, that can help you develop that special strength a little bit faster, but you know, as cliche as it is, sometimes it's just more time on the mat is going to give you more you know, strength in those specific positions. So I know what people, you know, when you saw the title to this video, how heavy do you need to lift for BJJ? You came wanting some numbers, you know, of what is strong enough, or what would I consider to be elite strength for a jiu-jitsu competitor. And these are you know, numbers that I've thought about for a while, and if a jiu-jitsu competitor has these, they are, you know, almost certainly maximally strong enough to be successful at any level of competition if they can pair the technique along with it. And again, this could be a bigger discussion as we get into special strength and transfer of training, dynamic correspondence, and all that type of stuff. But in more traditional weight room exercises, the stuff that you know you might be doing now, if you have a male jiu-jitsu athlete who could squat 2 times their body weight, they are in the top 1% of jiu-jitsu strength, probably 1.75 times their body weight for a female competitor. If you have a jiu-jitsu competitor who could bench 1.5 times their body weight for males, 1 time their body weight for females, that is going to be elite strength in the jiu-jitsu community. In the deadlift, and whether this is trap bar, straight bar, sumo, conventional, doesn't really matter, and that's going to be the topic of another video as we get into exercise selection. But if you could deadlift 2.5 times your body weight for a male, or 2.25 times the body weight for the female, that is going to be elite strength in jiu-jitsu. And maybe the exercise of these that could have the highest correspondence is going to be the pulling strength. So if you had someone who could load half of their body weight onto a weight belt, a dip belt, a male competitor, half their body weight, and do 3 pull-ups with that, or for a female athlete, 0.2 times their body weight extra on a belt and do 3 pull-ups, that would be great back strength. Or if the bent over barbell row is more your speed, and this may be the case for super heavy and ultra heavy competitors, as if you're 275 pounds and you could, or 280 pounds, let's say, and you could do 3 pull-ups with 140 pounds added to you by a weight belt, you would be enormously, excessively strong, and I don't want to roll with you. So maybe for those bigger athletes, the barbell row is a better indication. And if you could do 3 reps in the bent over barbell row with relatively strict technique that is equal to your bench press strength, I would consider that to be pretty elite strength. Now, while you may hear some of those numbers, and some of you might think, wow, I need to get a lot stronger to achieve those, some of you may hear that and think, wow, I'm already stronger than that. If you're in that second group, you're already stronger than that, you're probably at the point of diminishing returns when it comes to developing maximal strength to improve your jiu-jitsu. So focusing on those other qualities of explosive strength, isometric strength, and strength endurance, and leaving more energy for you to do more drilling, specific training, and live training on the mats is going to be beneficial to you. If you're hearing that and saying, well, I can only squat 1.25 times my body weight, and Chad said in this YouTube video, to have elite strength, I need to squat 2 times my body weight. That does not mean that you finish watching this video and you go and download, Smolov squat routine and try and get your squat up to 2 times body weight, in the next 3 months, and think that that's going to make you into an elite jiu-jitsu competitor. No. It's not about putting all this attention to one area or the other. It's about balancing them for simultaneous development. So getting on a powerlifting program to squat 2 times your body weight right now is not in the next 3 months going to make you into an elite jiu-jitsu competitor. That's not what the hole in your game is. Getting stronger over time, being able to produce more force in maximal strength, being able to produce that force faster for explosive strength, being able to hold static positions longer and stronger with isometric strength, and having greater strength endurance, especially specifically like in your grips and arms and legs if you're playing a lot of guard or open guard stuff. That's what's going to do it. But it's all about balancing this the simultaneous development of technical skill and the physical qualities. So the emphasis on that is going to kind of ebb and flow throughout the year. It's going to be a bit different from one competitor to the other, depending on what your athletic background is. If you're coming into jiu-jitsu with a background like me in strength power sports like powerlifting, strongman, weightlifting, track and field, you may already be at or above those elite BJJ strength numbers that I talked about. And you can really just focus on maintaining that, staying healthy, doing the prehab and rehab exercises you need, maybe developing some of that explosive strength, isometric strength and strength endurance that you may have been lacking if you were just doing, powerlifting or weightlifting. While you have a lot more, and that's a good situation to be in, because now you have a lot of energy that you can devote towards your jiu-jitsu while just maintaining and making slight improvements in the weight room. If you're on the other side of things and you have almost no background in lifting weights, but you've been training a ton of jiu-jitsu for the last 10 years, yeah, it may be beneficial to you to go from training 10 times a week on the mats back to 5 or 6 times for a couple months, so you can put a little bit more energy towards lifting weights and getting stronger and being able to produce more force. And then as you get closer to competition, that balance is going to shift. And then after competition, after your primary competition, it's going to shift back the other way to more strength and conditioning and a little bit less jiu-jitsu. And that's going to ebb and flow throughout the year. So, keep in mind that the goal of your training for jiu-jitsu, all of the components of training, both on the mat and off, is to become a better jiu-jitsu competitor. It is not to become a better powerlifter or a better weightlifter. That, in and of itself, especially beyond like the white belt level and lower level competition, isn't going to make you successful. Like at white belt and probably a lot at blue belt, I am successful in a large part because I'm much stronger than everyone else. I'm a better weightlifter than them. But I know as I get to purple belt, brown belt, black belt, that's not going to be the case. That's not going to really matter much anymore. It'll always help to be strong, but trying to increase those numbers for the sake of increasing the numbers should not be the goal of your training. I remember the first day that I trained with Jacob Harmon, who helps me with some wrestling and has coached all kinds of the best jiu-jitsu competitors in the world, Romulo Barral, Felipe Pena, Buchecha, and I trained with Jacob and I got back to my school the next day and everyone's like, Jacob's a big guy. He's probably 5'9", 265 pounds. And I said, well, you're probably still way stronger than him, right? And I looked at him and I was like, mind you, the day before, Jacob had gotten a collar grip on me that I tried to break, a two-hand grip break on it. And I didn't feel like I was halfway to breaking his grip. But talked to him about lifting weights, and he doesn't really have much experience with that at all. And I said to my friends at school, like yes, I'm better at lifting weights than he is, but he is better at lifting people than I am. And that's kind of what you're getting at here, is you have to develop the special strength on the mat with repetition, with time. And while the weight room can help benefit that, it should not be, the overarching focus. It should not be how much can you squat, how much can you bench, how much can you deadlift, snatch, clean, whatever. That's not going to instantaneously make you a better jiu-jitsu competitor. It's finding that right balance for the time of the year, like relative to competition, and for you as an individual based on your current strengths and weaknesses. That's going to help you be successful. So how heavy do you need to lift for BJJ? Not that heavy. Being stronger of course helps, but you don't need to be the best powerlifter, the best weightlifter in the world to be the best jiu-jitsu competitor. But I wouldn't go the other way either and say, well, I don't need to lift weights at all. I can just train on the mat all the time. It's going to help, but it shouldn't be the singular focus. So hopefully that gave you a better understanding of this kind of philosophical concept of how heavy you need to train, or what is strong enough for Jiu-Jitsu, make sure go back and check out the other videos on Jiu-Jitsu strength and conditioning that we've already done. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, be on the lookout for more upcoming videos on these topics, as well as our AI coaching system for Jiu-Jitsu strength and conditioning. You can find all of that at jtsstrength.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.